Will you get alimony if you've only been married for 1 year in New York State? Well, New York State generally has a guide. The spousal support statute in New York State provides for how long maintenance should be, or alimony, and how much the presumptively correct amount of alimony should be. But here's the thing. With a year, the guide is going to put you in a very short time frame for alimony if you qualify for it at all. And I will tell you, in my experience, most judges, if you've only been married for a year, are loath to give you alimony.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll see how a woman complains about 11 years of marriage because Chad didn't change. Afterward, we'll look at how a beta provider finds out that his wife of more than 20 years had been with more than 10 men back in college when they were dating, and how she continued cheating even after they got married. She's so narcissistic that she says she did nothing wrong, claiming it was just a youthful mistake. I want you to smash that like button and join the channel by subscribing. Add some love to the movement. That's the only contribution we ask from you, man. Share your experiences in the comments to guide other men. Without further ado, let's get started.
When was the moment you knew your marriage was over? For me, there were lots of moments, things I didn't recognize until later. That should have been the moment. Here's the first one that should have been the moment. Now that I've been through all of this. We'd been married for about a year and a couple months. I was finishing up my degree to become a teacher. He was not going to school and he was not working. Should have been my first sign. And that we had just found out, I'd taken a pregnancy test, that I was newly pregnant. We were excited, didn't know what was happening, like all the feelings. Well, 2 days later, I started bleeding and what ended up being a miscarriage. I ended up staying home from school that day. Just a lot of emotions. I remember crying a lot and not feeling great and bleeding a lot. And I remember not having the supplies I needed to handle a miscarriage. And I had asked my then husband if he would go to the store for me and go buy me some pads. And he looked at me and he was like, I can't do that. That makes me very uncomfortable. And I was like, what? We are adults. I am your wife. I just had a miscarriage and I'm asking for some help. Please? And he said no again. And he made a reference to a time back in high school when he promised himself and some friends that he would never be that guy to buy those things. And in that moment, I remember being like, But it was a flash, right? I went and I put a hat on. I put a jacket on. And I left without saying anything to him. Eyes swollen from crying, not feeling great, to go buy the supplies I'd asked him for help with. That was the moment that should have been the moment. But I lasted 11 more years, 4 kids.
And what are you complaining about? This is the never-ending story. Women choose a Chad, a loser, who brings nothing to the table but his seed. Then they get mad, because Chad is the same years later as he was on day 1. These are the women who think they can change a man, hoping he'll become different from who he was. Here's the thing. You chose him. I'm sure you had other options, but you picked him. In the first year, you saw the signs and stayed with him. Then, in the second year, the same process, and you kept staying with him. So, what are you complaining about when the red flags were there all along? You gave him 11 years of your life. The truth is, you liked that man. You'd do anything for him, and now that he left you for someone else, you're complaining. In every story, women always paint the man as the bad guy. But remember, it's the woman who gives a man access to her bed. It's the woman who lets a man into her life. The woman chooses who she'll date. I bet there were other guys, but they didn't stir up her emotions the way Chad did. This guy awakened a roller coaster of emotions in her, which is why she stayed with him for 11 years and had kids with him, because she wanted his seed. So, you got what you wanted. Anything more would have been greed.
Am I wrong for ending a 20-year marriage because I learned my wife cheated on me while we were dating? Sirens were real, not a sound effect. My wife, 44 female, and I, 43 male, have been married 20 years. We started dating in high school when I was a junior and she was a senior. We were long distance for her first 2 years of college while I was in high school and did 1 year at community college. Then we went to college in the same city for a year and have lived together since. We got married the summer after I graduated college. Our marriage has been pretty great so far, but I initiated a divorce after I discovered that she was sleeping with multiple other men for the 2 years that we were long distance. Just after Christmas, we got together with a few friends of hers from college to catch up, have dinner, and hang out. We talked about a lot of stuff, and my wife mentioned that we met in high school. Not that we dated, just that we met. Her old college roommate commented that it was crazy that we met in high school, had a few wild years in college, and then ended up together. Ruh-roh. Like, oh no, Scoob. Like you're about to find something out you weren't supposed to. Like, let's go make some sandwiches. I played along and commented that I didn't know if my wife was as crazy as I was. The roommate started to tell a story, but my wife cut her off and said she was uncomfortable about it. I sensed something was up, so I said that we actually started dating in high school and were together for my wife's entire time at college. All of my wife's friends got real quiet, and the rest of the dinner was awkward. On the way out, one of her other roommates took me aside and said that I should have an honest conversation about what happened at college. I asked my wife on the way home, and she kind of blew me off. I told her it was important that she was honest with me, and again, she said it wasn't important. When we got home, I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what happened in college. The next day, she came over and admitted to sleeping with several men during her first 2 years at college. She said she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance and she didn't think a high school romance would last. I pressed for more details and she said it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys she introduced me to as friends when I visited her on weekends, and 1 guy she was still in contact with. I told her that I wanted a divorce and would be starting the paperwork as soon as I could, which I did on January 2nd. Her family and most of my family are telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes.
When a woman tells you she's been with more than 10 guys, you can bet there are more than what she's admitting. It was just 2 years, and I'm sure even after she left college, she did something here and there. What happened is that college unleashed her completely. Of course, he should ask for a divorce. Just by seeing how uncomfortable that silence was with her friends, it's clear that she's been spreading her love all over town. Those years were wild, and the worst part, she introduced you to her friends. You know, that so-called friend who shows up out of nowhere. In other words, she cheats on you and then makes you hang out with the guy she's cheating with. God, if that's not evil, I don't know what is. She had him talking with the guy she was cheating with, probably having drinks together. Women talk about men being bad, but compared to them, we're saints. But let's keep going with the story.
I've stood by my belief that cheating on me with multiple men for years is unacceptable no matter when it happened, and the fact that she continued to maintain relationships with these guys right in front of me was an unacceptable amount of disrespect. We have 2 children, but they are 17 and 19, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I feel like I'm going crazy with the number of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. We have edits and updates and stuff here, so I'm just going to dive right into them. But I've got thoughts. I have thoughts. Edit. Holy shit, I'm glad I did this with a throwaway because the response here is unexpected. I obviously can't answer every question or comment, but I wanted to provide some detail for common questions. The reason I posted this is that my wife and a few friends have been saying it's common to sleep with other folks when you're in a long distance relationship, and that I'm kind of the odd one for not sleeping around. I feel like I was being gaslit, but I wanted an outside perspective. We live in a state with a waiting period to finalize a divorce, so it felt like a reasonable idea to get some insight before things are finalized. After these comments, I see a handful of folks saying it's normal to sleep around during a long-distance relationship, but it seems to be a significant minority. We saw each other a couple of weekends a month during the 2-year college period. I lived about 3 hours away from her college, so it was long distance, but not like cross country. This was not a situation where we went months without seeing each other. The 3 guys I met while she was in college were meetups that happened during parties. The subject of me being a boyfriend didn't really come up, so I honestly don't know if these guys knew anything. The one guy we're still in contact with married a mutual friend from college. This is not some guy she secretly messages on the side. It's somebody we've talked to regularly for years. I've talked to him a few times since I've learned about my wife. He said he didn't know we were dating at the time and has since blocked my wife on social media. Some folks have asked how the roommates didn't realize at our wedding that the timelines didn't work out. The main reason is that my wife and I had a very small ceremony with just close family in Texas, then went back to the East Coast to have a big party with friends. The typical reception/sharing details about how we met stuff didn't really happen, so her roommates didn't realize we started dating before college. It sounds like they thought we only dated for the year we were both in the same city, then moved in together. I was open to therapy or some kind of attempt to save the marriage, but her insistence that this whole thing is common and that I'm the one who's out of line is just too much for me. The only time she showed any remorse or even offered to reconcile was when I started filing paperwork. And the last week, she's gone back to saying she's right and I'm overreacting. This is also why I feel like I'm being gaslit. It seems obvious that this is a major issue, but I've got my wife and others telling me it's normal and I'm overreacting. I'm not getting a paternity test unless my kids want to get one. I don't have any doubts that they are biologically mine and no test will make them not my kids.
Oh, hell no!
Talking about going to therapy? What therapy, man? She cheated on you. I'm sure she did it after the wedding too. I would have done a DNA test because this woman clearly had an entire plan in place. First, she made the wedding small, which tells me she didn't invite anyone who knew about her wild past, just people from her small town. Even worse, she had you talking with the guys she was cheating with. In other words, you were always the safe option, the beta provider, the plan B while she was having fun with Chads. I don't get what you're trying to fix. There's a saying, you can't make good wine from bad grapes. This woman was clearly a cheater before, and she'll be one in the future. It wasn't just 1 or 2, it was 10 guys. That's the number she gave you, but I'd bet $1 million it was way more than that.
I love them more than anything in the world, and my wife's infidelity won't change that, even if one or both of them is not biologically mine. They've been my kids for 19 years, and they will be my kids until I stop breathing.
Final edit.
Hey all, I've been reading a bunch of the responses, but things are getting crazy and increasingly unhinged, so I probably won't be checking in more. Here are a few more answers to common questions I've seen. We were definitely exclusively dating at the time. First, dating culture was a lot different 20-ish years ago, and exclusive was kind of the default for most people. Second, we had a long and difficult discussion before she left for college about continuing the relationship long distance. She specifically wanted to stay together and even joked about her dad coming after me if I started sleeping around with girls at my school. Finally, at my senior prom, she was not able to attend and was very upset when I proposed going with a platonic female friend of mine. As a result, I ended up skipping my prom and hanging out with her instead. While we never said the word exclusive, I think the above reasons combined with the general relationship before she left are enough to assume exclusivity. Based on some comments here, I followed up with a friend who said I should have an honest conversation. She told me that 10 guys would be on the low end, and that her biggest concern was that there was apparently at least one pregnancy scare that I didn't know about. I honestly don't think that really changes much. It's less about the number for me and more about the fact that she seems incapable of recognizing why this was wrong or why I feel betrayed. Thank you all for the helpful responses, even those who disagree with me. I will still be open to therapy if she's willing, but I honestly feel like it would be more about us being successful co-parents and finding closure than saving our marriage. And we're going to dive into some relevant comments too. Oh, there's another update after the relevant comments? Relevant comments. It would change a lot if I felt that she wanted to fix this. Throughout our conversation about it, she repeatedly dismissed my feelings and told me I was overreacting to totally normal behavior. She didn't show any regret or consideration for how it hurt me until she realized I was serious about divorce, and then she got defensive and angry. She didn't offer to fix things in any way until I started the paperwork and notified her that I had a lawyer. I think we can navigate being parents. Our kids are older, and I've been putting away money for college and post-high school for a long time, so a lot of the custody and monetary issues that come up shouldn't be a big problem. We're also both financially stable and make good money. I have some doubts about our marriage now, but those are my kids. My son looks like my younger clone, and my daughter also bears a huge familial resemblance. I will be honest, even if a DNA test showed 0 chance they were mine, I would never ever say a damn thing about it, and I would still love them every ounce as much. I've hired a lawyer. He drafted an intent to separate and sent her a copy via certified mail. As far as I know, that's not any legal divorce paper with the state, but rather a part of the process to ensure that she has an opportunity to hire her own lawyer if she wants to contest it. Actually, going through the divorce will likely take months. I'm not really moved out. I've been crashing at my brother's place while I make arrangements for a more permanent living scenario. As far as timing goes, the dinner happened on the 26th. I went to my brother's house that night to cool off and to give her a chance to think about things. We've talked several times over the course of 4 to 5 days, and she made it clear that she didn't believe she did anything wrong. If there was any kind of remorse or regret or basic consideration of my feelings on her part, I probably would have waited. However, she didn't. So I found a divorce lawyer, and he had boilerplate intent to separate agreements that we filled out and sent over the same day. Even now, we're obviously not legally divorced, and I don't even know if there is a legal concept of separation in my state, but I've made it clear that this is happening and started the process.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Typical of a narcissistic woman. I didn't do anything. You're just exaggerating. And then her friends say, 10 guys isn't a big deal. It should happen to them so that they can share the same opinion. This guy seems like your typical simp. He wants this woman, despite the cheating, and is trying to save something that's already dead. Why try to fix something that was broken from the start? This woman won't change. She hasn't changed over the years. I get that he doesn't want to do DNA tests, but the doubt will always live in his mind. He's in denial, scared of losing everything. But let's be real. There's a high chance those kids aren't his. I've always said it, and I'll repeat it. A man only looks for 3 things in a woman: loyalty, fertility, and acts of service. If you can't provide the easiest one, loyalty, you're discarded immediately. You can see she controlled his every move, even who he could be friends with, and threatened him that her father would pay him a visit if he ever cheated on her. This woman is a controlling narcissist who will never, ever admit she's at fault.
Update February 5th, 2024, 28 days after the original, right? And 2 days ago. I wanted to provide some updates here as my original post got a lot of traction. My wife and I are seeing a couples counselor and have been to 3 sessions now. Based on what my original post outlined and what we've talked about in counseling, I'm still moving forward with the divorce. I believe that counseling was the right move, and I appreciate folks for recommending it. I don't think it's going to save our marriage, but it has helped me communicate my feelings, helped my wife understand where I'm coming from, and most importantly, helped us be in a position to work together as co-parents. First, let's talk about the things I learned about the situation in college. After talking to my wife in sessions and texting with 2 of her roommates, it's clear that her roommates knew something was up in college. They said they thought the situation was weird and likely involved cheating. My wife had told them that we both had some wild times in college and worked it out before we got married, so they never really brought it up. The roommate who pulled me aside recently was uncomfortable with the fact that my wife clearly didn't talk it through with me and wanted me to know. As far as being introduced to guys she slept with, apparently that was not intended. For one of the guys, he ended up dating and then marrying one of our mutual friends from college. This is the guy she was in contact with. In the other situations, she initially blamed me in the counseling session, but has now agreed it was bad. When I went to visit her, she planned to hang out in the room or just hang out together alone. But I wanted to go to a few parties because in high school and community college, I didn't really have parties to go to. She didn't expect me to meet the guys, but they were at the parties and she felt like she didn't really have a choice. I still think this is kind of shitty, but it's not as bad as her intentionally parading me in front of the guys. Most of our discussion in therapy has been talking about why I think it's a big deal and she doesn't. She initially said that none of these guys were in relationships with her and it was mostly one-night stands or FWB, friends with benefits. Since she didn't view them as romantic relationships, she didn't see the big deal. Her words, not mine. My opinion is that we never said that was okay, and she actively prevented me from doing the same.
I told you, a narcissist. She wouldn't let him do the same, but she had no problem doing it herself. Of course, she doesn't see the issue because, to her, it's nothing to be giving herself to half the university. But her boyfriend, he better not do anything, because that would hurt her. Honestly, you can't make this stuff up. This guy is the classic nice guy, a good prospect, and this woman knew it. After trying all those guys, she didn't find anyone like him who could provide the financial security and give her the ring. I imagine why. After burning herself so badly, no one would give her the ring. That's why she kept her beta provider safe. The worst part is coming. Why do you think it would stop at college? Once a cheater, always a cheater. You don't make good wine from bad grapes. Just look at what she says next.
After digging into this across 2 sessions and my wife talking to some friends, she now agrees that it was a breach of our trust and relationship. This is the shared understanding that has helped us talk about this situation more honestly and helped us get from arguing to talking, which is why I'm optimistic about co-parenting. Now, here's why I'm 100% set on divorce. 2 things came up that made me want to leave the marriage. First, about 10 years ago, we went through a really rough patch and had a dead bedroom for about 2 years. She had expressed that our sex life was becoming boring, so I tried to spice things up. Nothing crazy, just role play and Spencer's Gift level toys. Apparently, she had been hung up on some sexual experiences that happened in college that she is not comfortable talking about and wanted me to try them. When I did, it made her feel awkward and guilty that it made her think of other men while she was with me. The fact that she's saying these experiences were meaningless, but they're still impacting our marriage tells me they meant more than she wants to say. Second, she admitted that she has been flirting with coworkers on business trips since the pandemic ended. She says she has never slept with anybody, but it has gone as far as going on a date with one of her male coworkers. That was an absolute deal breaker for me. We have told our children that we're getting a divorce. We told them it was due to some bad decisions that we made in college and that we're having trouble moving past. My 19-year-old, who was in college, asked me if I cheated on my wife while she was away at college. My wife got a little shaken up, but admitted to the kids that she's the one who cheated. We have agreed to not share any additional details with the kids. I reinforced that both of us will be there for the kids and that we are in therapy to help make sure we can handle this in the best way for the family. I also told the kids if they wanted to talk to either of us or a therapist about it, I would fully support it. We started talking to a mediator about how to proceed with the divorce, and unless things change, we should be able to have an amicable divorce. We're both financially stable on our own, we have no major debts, and our kids are older, so custody isn't a major issue. This has been a shitty couple of months for me, but I'm doing okay now, and I honestly am grateful that my last post blew up because it both validated some of my feelings, but also motivated me to go to counseling with my wife.
Hell to the no, no. Hell no.
She went on business trips, and for 2 years, the bedroom was dead. She wanted to try things in the marriage that she had done in college. Man, let me tell you, it seems like they called you the bull because you were wearing horns every day. You should be running to get a DNA test because I'm sure during those 2 years of a dead bedroom, your horns grew even more. This woman wasn't going to stop. She didn't like you in bed. Let me tell you something. If there's one thing you need to do right with a woman, it's in bed. You can be cheap, lazy, a classic Chad. But if she likes you in bed, she'll put up with anything. Look at how she says she was bored and started looking for dates with others. Nothing happened, she claims. That's why I'm telling you it was more than 10 guys. When a woman cheats, she loses the fear. She becomes addicted to the feeling of not getting caught. They love that. Remember, a woman always prioritizes her feelings. She cheats because of how she feels. She ends marriages for her feelings. That's why I'm telling you, if she didn't like you in bed, she cheated on you way more than she's admitting.
That was a ride. Yeah, Francis, yeah. It's like she went on a date with somebody in the past couple of years. There, obviously the fact that it happened, the college shit, all of it. Obviously the fact that it happened is bad. What's worse to me is that she keeps sticking to her guns and she's like, no, you're the weird one for not doing it. You're overreacting. Of course you're being gaslit. Of course, when people get exposed, they freak out. Of course they freak out. And in this case, she's just like, yeah, it's no big deal. No, of course. Okay. The problem with it being no big deal to you, soon to be ex-wife, is that that same level of thinking is what has you flirting with coworkers, going on a date with a coworker on a trip in the past couple of years. Yeah, so your level of acceptable loyalty is fudged. There's no line. It's like just a very blurry gray area for her, and that to me, people have their own feelings about what's acceptable and what's not within a relationship. This would be an absolute deal breaker for me because from the very beginning and since then, he was lied to. And if she had shown remorse, say, if it had been like oh my God, like I'm so sorry. Let's talk through it. Let's go to counseling. Let's move past this. I was wrong. Like accepted any level of accountability here. The only time she accepted any accountability whatsoever was when she reluctantly told her kids because they were thinking it was him. That's the only time in any of this story that I saw her accept any kind of accountability. And that wasn't even to her partner. That was to the kids. Wow. If there had been any remorse, he would have been willing to work on things, but there wasn't. And it becomes very clear that her level of loyalty is just warped. Her worldview on this is warped. The shitty hypocritical thing for me, though, is that if he did this, she would absolutely have a problem with it, because in college, she actively had a problem with the thought of him seeing other girls, even going to prom with another girl. Meanwhile, she's with, it's hypocritical. It's a breach of trust. It's hypocritical. It is an inability to be accountable whatsoever. She wanted to have her fun while he waited for her. Sure. And you know what? The fact that it happened is a separate deal than her gaslighting him into thinking that, that it's normal. Those are two separate deals. And she was hypocritical about it because she didn't want him to do anything. If she had been honest about it from the get-go, or even honest about it whenever it came up and showed remorse and decided to work on things, it would be a completely different scenario. It is her still clinging to this policy of hers that has her going on dates with coworkers, even if, as recent as a couple of years ago. That is the problem. And OP recognizing it, being like, yeah, okay, it's a complete lack of respect. Complete. It's an imbalance of respect, put it that way. This relationship is imbalanced because they have different worldviews of what's acceptable and what's not when it comes to loyalty, and neither one are willing to budge. So, impasse.
See why I say men today are strong in their needs, but weak in their boundaries? This guy never set any boundaries with this woman. She did whatever the hell she wanted with him. Even after being married, she kept going out with other men. She's a woman who craves male attention. I'm sure that in college, or while married, she cheated more than she's admitting. She told him 10 guys to help him, thinking that was a low number. Then she says everyone does it because you didn't. She only took responsibility when he did what I've always said. He took action. If you don't take action, the other person never feels sorry for anything. At least she told the kids it was her fault, because most of these narcissists just turn your kids against you and play the victim. At least this man put his foot down and ended things. We'll see how he comes out of the divorce. He was the good guy, and look how they treated him. Then women wonder why men have changed. It's because women today have no boundaries. Brothers, always remember to be strong with your boundaries. If she doesn't like it, then discard her. She's not the woman for you. Never try to make good wine from bad grapes. Once a cheater, always a cheater. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. What do you think about this story? Do you really believe it was only 10 men she cheated on him with? Do you think he should get a DNA test for his kids? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from The Wall.